I was listening to New Heights podcast with Jason and Travis, the Kelce brothers. They had on Brock Purdy. And just listening, and I was listening to Rosillo's podcast with Jason Kelce. He's just such an impressive guy. When we drafted him, I think it was my second year in Philly, he was kind of crazy, not in like a bad way, but I just remember like partied pretty hard, obviously won the job from the jump, and he was in a good way. I mean, it's positive, kind of wild man, and in a good, you want your linemen to be wild men, and obviously Travis Kelce, who told Brock Purdy on the podcast, like, I was a major red flag guy coming out of college. And obviously Jason fell in the draft because he was undersized. Travis fell in the draft because he had some red flags in college. And yet both those guys are first ballot Hall of Famers. And coming up here in the next couple of days, like, we'll end up talking a lot about the first round picks, and rightfully so. Those are the guys that you give a lot of money to. Those are the guys that, tend historically to be major hits when you pick on them. But any of you guys that are fans of different teams want to know about the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round picks, right? And I've taken the stance of, like, beside the top, like, 50 guys in the draft, I don't pretend to act like this guy's some can't miss guy in the fourth or what a pick in the sixth, because it's impossible to know. No one has any clue. And as someone that has now been worked in the league and just gone to training camps for a decade, every single year you see this guy like, God, look at this random fifth round pick, or look at this undrafted free agent whooping the second round pick's ass. And listen to those two guys now and just following their careers, and obviously going to the Niners practices, who some of their best players, Fred Warner's a third round pick, George Kittle's a fifth round pick. Like, they get guys that, obviously Nick Bosa's a really high pick, but they have some of their core guys that were later round picks. And the reason is character. And I don't just mean the way you treat people. I just mean your character when it comes to football. So, like, are you super focused? Does football mean everything to you? No matter what, do you refuse to fail? Will you do absolutely everything in your power to be a good football player? Because clearly, once you make the league, for the most part, you have the requisite arm length, foot speed, give or take an inch or a couple pounds or whatever. But, like, the margins for separating in this upcoming draft, a third round pick and a sixth round pick, is very, very tiny. It's honestly, it's extremely small. And every single training camp, immediately, that sixth or seventh round pick will be better than that third or second round pick. It'll happen all over the league. And you look around the league, there'll be sixth, seventh, fifth rounders starting. They'll win starting jobs. They will get veterans cut. And I don't care how deep we get into this, how much psychological testing we have. It's the coolest part about the draft, the stuff you can't quantify. Like, all of a sudden you look back, like, Travis Kelce was a red flag guy. And then he became someone every guy in the Kansas City Chiefs building, players, executives, coaches, beloved. They swear by the guy. They can't get enough of him. And this guy was a red flag guy coming out of college, right? So it just shows you how difficult it is. Some of these red flag players coming out of college. I remember talking to the Chiefs when they had the Honey Badger. They're like, favorite player on my team. Love the guy. He was kicked out of LSU. Didn't go till the third round. He's been a team captain on 3 different teams in the NFL. But if everyone knew that maturity and focus and whatever the question marks were, he would have been a top 20 pick. But you can't know that at the time when you take, because they're kids. They're 21, 22 years old. And I say this all the time. Like, I speak for myself because I do think I represent a lot of guys. Like, most of us are not locked and loaded at 20 years old, are ready to start a company, are ready to be some starting quarterback, are mature enough to handle it, whether you're any industry, including football. But as you grow, as you get older, as you surround yourself with either higher level people, successful people, we mature. And, like, it's impossible to know. It's absolutely, you can't figure it out. And I think one thing I watched John Lynch's press conference today talking about the draft, they're non-negotiable when it comes to drafting in the recent years, is football character and physicality. And I think if you have high football character and you're physical, because I think sometimes, like, on tape, if you have really good numbers or maybe you produced, it's like, well, we've heard he doesn't love football, and sometimes he'll turn down contact, but God, he had 12 touchdowns. Those are the guys, once you get to the league, because it's way harder, preparation, the demand of everything, usually don't work. Like when you look at Jason Kelce and Travis Kelce, those guys are football junkies. It means everything to them. George Kittle, Richard Sherman, just go around the league of these later round picks that hit the studs. Like football is a major priority in their life. And I love it during this time of year whenever the media makes a big deal. It's like, why does everybody have a balanced life? But the NFL is not a balanced life. For 6 months of the year, all your chips are in the middle of the table as a coach, as a player. It doesn't mean you don't get to see your son or your wife or go to dinner with them sometimes during the year, but you spend a large amount of time, a large percentage of the pie chart doing football stuff. And anytime, whether you make $10 or whether you make $10 million, if you're going to spend and allocate a lot of your time and energy towards something, that's why most successful people tell you, if you can do anything, try to find something you enjoy doing it. It sounds cheesy, but it's so fucking true. Because if you enjoy doing something, you are less likely to not do it. Because most times, I don't care if you're a football player, a podcaster, a car salesman, you name it. You're going to have to work sometimes when it's like, I'd rather be at the beach. I'd rather be at dinner with my wife. I'd rather just be at home doing nothing. And sometimes you got to work. Sometimes you got to do stuff. And when you like doing it, it makes it much more possible. And I think we're going to see so many guys drafted that are going to be not good football players and so many guys drafted later who are better than them at football. I think a lot of it comes down to the person. And that's my favorite part about the draft is the value aspect. Where do the player I want, what round do I have to take him to get him on my team? Regardless of, do I think the guy's going to be a Hall of Famer, Pro Bowl, or whatever? I like this guy a lot, and I want to draft him, but I don't need to take him in the second round because I can get him in the fourth. And the good GMs know exactly how to maneuver that. Second favorite part is like the wiring of the individuals that you draft. Because most guys are talented, right? Drafting guys from Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, USC, Texas, all over this. Not Texas, they haven't had many draft picks lately, but they will this year. But you know what I mean? What separates them is the stuff that it ain't the jumping, it ain't the arm length. That stuff does, but that's why they're good or not at their, position, right? But what's going to sustain and what's going to have them pass guys and what's going to have the guys not make it is all the intangible stuff. And you can do all the research you want. You can talk to everyone in the program. But man, like it's a lot of you guys listening right now, like, there weren't many people that believed in me, right? You think that you're a successful human being. People can tell you good, bad, or indifferent, but like what separates people is once they get there, the player, what's inside deep down. Sounds cliche or stupid, but it's just a fact.